The winds of war swept across the restless Aegean, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire generation. Under the command of Agamemnon and Menelaus, 1,000 black-sailed ships assembled, their hulls creaking as they rocked on the churning waves. The air was thick with anticipation and the distant cries of gulls, as warriors from every corner of Greece answered the call to arms. This was no ordinary fleet. It was a force united by a single burning purpose. Bound for the fabled city of Troy, these ships carried men determined to reclaim Helen, the stolen queen, and to restore the honor of Greece. Each vessel was a floating world of ambition, fear, and dreams of glory, all converging on the distant golden shores of Asia Minor. Among the legendary heroes, Achilles, swift-footed and fierce, Odysseus, cunning and wise, Ajax, mighty and unyielding, stood Philoctetus. He was the commander of 7 ships, a leader respected for his valor and his unwavering sense of duty. But what truly set him apart was the weapon he bore, the divine bow of Heracles, strung with the power of a demigod, and arrows dipped in the deadly poison of the Hydra. Philoctetus had not come by this weapon through inheritance or conquest. He had earned it through an act of profound courage and compassion, by lighting the funeral pyre of Heracles, his friend and hero, when all others had faltered. In that moment, as flames consumed the mortal remains of a legend, Philoctetus was entrusted with a legacy that would shape the fate of nations. The fleet pressed onward, their sails billowing with the promise of destiny. United by a sacred oath sworn before the gods, the warriors rode with grim determination, their hearts pounding with a mixture of pride, fear, and hope. Each man knew that the eyes of history, and the gods themselves, were upon them. Before embarking, the Greeks had sought guidance from oracles, and made sacrifices at ancient altars, hoping to win the favor of the gods. The omens were read, the entrails examined, and prayers whispered into the wind. Both mortals and immortals watched as the greatest expedition of the age set forth, each side seeking a sign that victory would be theirs. Philoctetus, with his sacred bow and unshakable resolve, was ready to play his part in the epic siege that would echo through the ages. His presence inspired awe among his peers, for they knew that the fate of Troy might one day rest on his skill and courage. As the ships cut through the waves, the air was alive with the sound of music and the voices of bards. Songs of past heroism and tales of gods and monsters filled the night, bolstering the courage of the men for the trials that awaited them on foreign shores. These stories reminded them that they, too, were part of a legend in the making. Yet, as Philoctetus gazed toward the distant outline of Troy, a shadow of uncertainty crossed his mind. He could not know that his own journey would soon diverge from the path of glory, and that the gods had woven a different fate for him, one marked by pain, isolation, and the ultimate test of his spirit. Destiny, shaped by the whims of gods and the choices of men, was about to cast Philoctetus into darkness and solitude. His story, like the voyage itself, was only just beginning, a tale of suffering, endurance, and the hope that even in exile, a hero's light can never be fully extinguished. Before reaching Troy, the Greeks were compelled to stop at the sacred island of Chryse to appease its nymph goddess. Agamemnon, heeding the seers, ordered a detour, knowing the god's favor was vital. Philoctetus, chosen for his piety, led a small party ashore to perform the ritual. The island's peace was deceptive. The heroes moved with reverence, seeking the hidden shrine. Philoctetus, at the head, felt the weight of responsibility, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. The leaders followed, trusting his guidance as they ventured deeper into the grove. Their mission was solemn, their prayers sincere, but fate had set a trap. Each step brought them closer to a moment that would change Philoctetus' life, and the war, forever. As Philoctetus searched for the shrine, disaster struck. A serpent, guardian of the goddess, bit deep into his foot. The venom was divine, its pain immediate and excruciating. Philoctetus collapsed, writhing in agony, his cries echoing through the grove. The wound festered, emitting a stench that repulsed all, the flesh blackening with decay. The other leaders watched helplessly. No remedy could ease his suffering. The sacred ritual was completed in haste, overshadowed by tragedy. Philoctetus was carried back to the ship, his agony unrelenting. The hero who bore Heracles' bow was now incapacitated, his fate uncertain. The gods' will seemed cruel, striking down their most faithful. The Greeks faced a terrible choice: what to do with their suffering comrade. Philoctetes' agony became unbearable for the fleet. His cries shattered morale, echoing through the night and chilling the hearts of even the bravest warriors. The sound of his suffering was relentless, a constant reminder of the pain and misfortune that had befallen them. Each day, the men grew more anxious, their resolve weakening as they listened to his desperate wails. His wound's stench polluted the air, drifting across the camp and making it nearly impossible for anyone to find rest. The infection festered, and the foul odor seemed to seep into everything, tainting their food and their spirits. The men began to fear that the gods themselves had cursed their expedition. Odysseus argued that the army could not proceed with Philoctetes aboard. His suffering was an ill omen. He insisted that the cries and the stench would only bring further misfortune, and that the morale of the entire fleet was at risk. The debate grew heated, with some pleading for mercy and others demanding action. The leaders, torn by guilt and necessity, decided to maroon him rather than kill him. They could not bring themselves to end the life of a comrade, yet they saw no other way to save the expedition. The decision weighed heavily on their hearts, and many wept in secret for the friend they would betray. They sailed to Lemnos, a desolate island, and left him in a cave with meager supplies and his bow. The cave was cold and unwelcoming, its shadows deep and silent. They left him with only the barest essentials, enough to survive but not enough for comfort. His only companion was his bow, a reminder of his former glory. As the ship slipped away, Philoctetes was abandoned, alone and unaware of what fate awaited him. The sound of oars faded into the distance, leaving only the wind and the waves for company. He called out, but no answer came, only the echo of his own voice across the barren rocks. The Greeks justified their act as a harsh necessity, but it stained their honor. Many could not meet each other's eyes, haunted by the memory of the man they had left behind. The weight of their decision would follow them, a silent burden on their journey. They sailed for Troy, haunted by the memory of his cries. The sea seemed darker, the sky more foreboding, as if the gods themselves mourned the abandonment. Every mile put between them and Lemnos deepened their sense of loss and regret. On Lemnos, a hero slept, forsaken by those he trusted most. The cave became his prison, and the silence pressed in on him, broken only by the distant cries of seabirds and the restless wind. His ordeal of solitude and pain had only just begun. Philoctetes would have to summon all his strength to survive, clinging to hope in the face of overwhelming despair as the world moved on without him. Philoctetes awoke to a silence so deep it pressed against his ears, broken only by the distant crash of waves and the mournful cry of seabirds circling overhead. The world felt empty, stripped of all comfort, and as he opened his eyes to the cold, unyielding rocks beneath him, the memory of what had happened came flooding back. The crushing realization of betrayal settled over him like a suffocating shroud. His friends, his comrades, those he had trusted with his life, had abandoned him without mercy, leaving him to rot in agony on this desolate island. Rage surged through his veins, hot and blinding. He screamed into the wind, cursing Odysseus, Agamemnon, and every man who had turned their back on him. Their names became bitter ashes on his tongue. Alone he hurled his fury at the empty sky, his voice echoing across the barren cliffs. He damned them all, wishing upon them the pain and isolation he now endured. His wounded foot throbbed with every heartbeat, a constant reminder of his suffering. The pain was sharp, relentless, and it mingled with a despair so deep it threatened to swallow him whole. Yet somewhere beneath the agony, a stubborn ember of will began to glow. He refused to let their betrayal be the end of his story. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself upright, vowing to survive, if only to spite those who had left him behind. Hatred fueled him, but so did a flicker of hope, the hope that one day he might have his revenge, or at least prove that he was stronger than their cruelty. The bow of Heracles, heavy and powerful, became his only companion. It was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of his defiance, a reminder that he still possessed the strength of a hero. He railed against the gods, his voice raw with anger and grief. Why had they allowed this injustice? Was this his fate to suffer alone for the pride and fear of others? Still, he clung to a sliver of faith, refusing to let despair claim him entirely. Each day became a battle for survival, scavenging for food, braving the elements, and enduring the relentless ache of his wound. His suffering was a test, a crucible that would either break him or forge him into something stronger. The wind and rain battered him, but he endured, refusing to yield. He would not die as they intended. He would endure not for glory or honor, but for the sheer stubbornness of survival. If he was to be alone on Lemnos, then he would make his solitude a weapon. Every day he survived was a victory over those who had cast him aside. Philoctetes' struggle was no longer for the glory of war or the praise of men, but for the simple, stubborn act of existence. Each breath was an act of rebellion. His survival would be his ultimate act of defiance, a living testament to the strength of the human spirit and a warning to those who would betray their own. The divine bow was Philoctetes' salvation. Despite his agony, he hunted birds with unerring skill, each poisoned arrow ensuring his survival. Life became a harsh routine: pain, hunting, and solitude. The cave was his world, the bow, his only companion. Years blurred together, marked by seasons and suffering. Hatred for his betrayers kept him sane, the bow connecting him to his heroic past. He endured, mastering the island's hardships, refusing to surrender. For 10 years the bow bore witness to his bitter endurance. 10 years on Lemnos transformed Philoctetes from commander to wild survivor. His wound never healed, pain and isolation became his reality. He raged at the sea, conversed with birds, and rehearsed vengeance against those who wronged him. Hatred was his anchor, but also his antidote to despair. He learned the island's secrets, surviving through sheer will. The life he lived was not one of glory, but of relentless endurance. He became a legend of survival, stripped to his core skill and spirit. Philoctetes was no longer just a Greek hero, he was a testament to human resilience. He endured day by day, unaware that fate had not finished with him. His spirit remained as sharp as his arrows. After 10 years of stalemate at Troy, the Greeks learned from a captured seer that victory required the bow of Heracles, and thus, Philoctetes. Guilt and dread gripped the leaders, their fate depended on the man they had abandoned. Odysseus and Neoptolemus, Achilles' son, were sent to retrieve him. Odysseus plotted deception, but Neoptolemus' conscience rebelled. On Lemnos they found Philoctetes, a shadow of his former self, consumed by pain and rage. Neoptolemus confessed the ruse, earning Philoctetes' trust through honesty. The stage was set for a difficult reconciliation. The Greeks' hope now rested on the forgiveness of the man they had wronged. Philoctetes' fury flared at the Greeks' request. He refused to help those who betrayed him. Neoptolemus, torn by loyalty and compassion, offered to take Philoctetes home instead. As hope faded, the spirit of Heracles appeared, commanding Philoctetes to fulfill his destiny. Heracles promised healing and glory if he returned to Troy. Moved by divine will and Neoptolemus' integrity, Philoctetes agreed. He was healed by the sons of Asclepius. His agony finally ended. On the battlefield, Philoctetes' arrow slew Paris, turning the tide of war. The forgotten hero became the savior of the Greeks, his endurance and spirit vindicated. Philoctetes' story endures as a testament to resilience, hope, and the power of the human will.